The West Galactic Cultural Exchange Hall glistened with polished obsidian floors, luminous golden trim, and banners of countless worlds draped in intricate folds along the vaulted ceiling. The room hummed softly with anticipation as alien delegates of every imaginable shape and physiology gathered in rows of hovering seats. Some clicked mandibles together in casual conversation, others whispered with scaled tongues or blinked in sequences of color to communicate. It was a grand occasion, humanity's historical presentation. The general mood was one of mild curiosity, even faint amusement. They had all heard that humanity was peaceful now, a young species eager to join the galactic fold, armed with arts, music, and intellectual pursuits. Stories of their strange emotional resilience and busts of invention had circulated through diplomatic channels for decades. But war? That was surely long in the past, they all believed. The opening sequence began. The grand screen at the front of the hall flickered to life, showing Earth from a orbit. Serene blues and greens wrapped in white clouds, soft music playing. The first images were of crowded markets, laughter in parks, children playing near grand monuments of peace. The delegates nodded approvingly. Then, with an abrupt shift in tone, the screen darkened. A narrator's voice, translated simultaneously into multiple dialects, spoke evenly. Before peace, humanity learned the cost of chaos. The image cut to a primitive battlefield. Stone weapons clashed under stormy skies as early humans screamed with fury and defiance. Spears flew, shields shattered. Primitive warriors covered in mud and blood surged forward, refusing to yield. The hall grew quieter. Some delegates tilted their heads, puzzled. The footage leaped forward in time, iron swords gleaming in sunlight, columns of disciplined soldiers marching across burning fields, archers unleashing volleys of arrows that blotted out the sky. The music turned from serene to rhythmic and heavy. Warriors locked blades with grim determination. The reptilian delegates' forked tongues flickered nervously. Van Ambassador twitched, her antennae stiffening. A low murmur rippled through the hall. The scene changed again. Great wooden ships crashed against each other in rolling seas, cannon fire exploding into clouds of splinters. The narrator spoke softly. When storms raged, humanity did not cower. They learned to face them. Siege towers burned against stone walls. Cities fell and rose again. Steel met steel in the clash of knights, followed by trembling hands clasped over lost comrades. On screen, medieval war banners flapped violently in smoky winds. The delegates shifted in their seats, glances exchanged. This wasn't what they had expected. A serpentine diplomat leaned toward a Christian envoy, whispering in urgent tones. This is ancient history, surely. The Christian envoy, shimmering faintly, did not answer. His features had dulled. But the documentary pressed on. Gunpowder, musket volleys cracking in disciplined unison. Human formations holding the line against impossible odds. Trenches carved into mud as shells rained from above. Men emerging from craters, faces determined and grim, charging forward with bayonets fixed. Bombers screamed across the sky, releasing fiery infernos. The delegates sat frozen, eyes wide, their bodies rigid. Van Diplomat's thorax trembled involuntarily. The narrator's voice softened but did not relent. And as the stakes grew, so did their resolve. The footage became sharper. Modern soldiers moving with precision, storming beachheads and in relentless fire. Paratroopers leaping from planes into the unknown night. Tanks grinding forward through shattered streets. Helicopters hovering over burning jungles. There was no pause, no hesitation, just unwavering endurance in the face of horrors. The delegates, once eager and relaxed, now sat silent and pale, or their equivalent in alien physiology. A murmuring buzz filled the chamber, anxious and uncertain. Some clutched translation devices with shaking limbs. One armored representative, thought to fear nothing, swallowed hard. Then the screen faded to black. Silence. For a moment, many thought it was over. But the narrator's voice returned with quiet gravity. and when they reached beyond their world, they carried that fire into the stars. The screen lit up with footage of space warfare simulations. Human pilots weaving through impassable asteroid fields, spacecraft shaking and an enemy fire but refusing to retreat. Saboteurs dismantling enemy ships with improvised tools. Officers issuing calm orders as their vessels burned around them. The final clip showed a lone human marine trapped behind enemy lines, his armor scorched and cracked. He glanced at his recording device, blood trickling down his brow, smiled faintly, and whispered, "For home," before charging into an overwhelming force. The room remained frozen, save for a single audible click as when Ambassador's translator fell from his trembling hands and clattered softly on the marble floor. The grand hall was silent as the first scene faded out, but the documentary did not stop. Instead, the holographic screen shifted to a cold, grey command room somewhere deep in space. Human commandants gathered around a tactical display filled with red warning signals. Enemy fleets, far more advanced, larger, and merciless, were closing in. Their ships bristled with energy weapons and planetary bombardment arrays. The narration, soft but steady, continued, and when faced with the impossible, humanity strategized. The screen zoomed in on Commandant Elira Graves, a woman with sharp features and cold determination in her eyes. Her voice rang out through the room. "They have numbers. We have resolve. They expect surrender. We give them ingenuity." The aliens in the council chamber leaned forward, their expressions cautious. The human commandants set their plan into motion. A battered fleet of small, outgunned human vessels pivoted toward the oncoming armada. The holographic display showed them surrounded, completely outmatched. But the humans didn't retreat. Instead, they launched hundreds of small decoy drones, each broadcasting false signals. The alien fleet faltered, their sensors overwhelmed by ghost echoes. Then the human fleet vanished into a nebula, scattering energy signatures in every direction. The reptilian council members hissed softly in astonishment. The screen cut to a chaotic battle scene. Alien cruisers fired blindly into the mist, confused and panicked. From unexpected angles, human ships emerged, precise and coordinated, striking key power nodes and retreating before the enemy could react. The narrator's voice grew firm. They learned to strike where they were least expected, and with everything they had. Human ships rammed enemy vessels when out of ammunition, detonating charges to take down ships 10 times their size. Marines infiltrated alien command centers in stolen enemy shutters, disabling entire fleets with acts of sabotage born from desperation and courage. The camera lingered on a single marine team, outnumbered 100-1, holding the line in a narrow space corridor as civilians escaped behind them. Plasma fire lit up the space, and when soldiers shouted, "Not when step back," the council chamber shifted with unease. Alien dignitaries exchanged glances of disbelief. The armored warlord from the Empire leaned forward, his claws twitching nervously. He whispered in his native tongue to his aide, "They fear nothing." The footage shifted again. Engineers on a failing station rigged broken reactor cores to explode with precise timing, turning defeat into victory. On a barren moon, pilots used their last drops of fuel to draw enemy fighters into gravity traps. The images showed human ships spinning out of control, their pilots ejecting in the final second, leaving only flaming debris and collapsing orbiter patterns that dragged alien cruisers to fiery ends. The hall filled with nervous energy. The diplomat buzzed in agitation, her wings fluttering restlessly. The narrator's voice dropped to a whisper. And when there was nothing left, they fought with whatever remained. The screen cut to ground footage of soldiers defending shattered trenches with sharpened shovels, rocks, even their bare fists. One battered soldier crawled through mud and wreckage, clutching a broken flagpole, planting it in the ruins as artillery thundered around him. The camera zoomed in on his face, bloody, exhausted, and still smiling. The footage blurred, cutting to a solemn memorial wall filled with names. And then, quietly, it shifted to footage of human children playing in fields of wildflowers, laughter echoing. A soft piano note played. They fight, the narrator whispered, so they can laugh again. But the final sequence shattered the fragile calm. A space battle beyond comprehension, human fleets crippled, shields failing, with an entire alien dreadnought preparing to annihilate a colony below. The colony's evacuation incomplete, the situation hopeless. The screen locked onto a single human pilot, torchbearer. Her face calm, eyes bright with resolve. She sent her final transmission. See you on the other side. Her small fighter accelerated into the dreadnought's weapon array, her ship's reactor overloading in a blinding burst of light that vaporized the weapon platform, saving thousands. The council chamber sat frozen. The Christian envoy, previously serene and composed, flickered and steady. His Christian frame vibrated with visible anxiety. A long silence stretched across the room before the screen finally dimmed. The last words of the narrator echoed across the chamber. Humanity does not seek war, but when war comes, they endure, they sacrifice and they win. In that moment, the West Hall of alien legions, once brimming with quiet confidence and mild curiosity, was filled with dread and awe. The sound of dozens of throats clearing, of wings twitching, of scaled tails nervously shifting, filled the silence. Not a single delegate spoke. They simply stared at the screen, processing the terrible, beautiful truth they had just witnessed. The chamber dimmed once more as the next sequence began, and an oppressive silence settled over the gathered alien delegates. On the West holographic display, the scene unfolded in deep space, near the broken wreckage of a failed human outpost. Alien assault forces, confident and overwhelming, were preparing their final bombardment. Swarms of attack ships circled lazily like vultures over a corpse. The narration resumed, softer this time, as though mourning. When hope seems lost, they surprise you. The image zoomed in on a battered human shutter, limping toward the enemy fleet. The alien's sensors ignored it, small, unarmed, irrelevant. But inside that shutter, a lone human engineer adjusted the final sequence on a rigged fusion core, sending a last message to their command, give 'em hell. The shutter detonated in silence, a sphere expanding with terrifying precision, wiping out the forward formation of the alien fleet. The chamber rippled with unease, alien eyes glowing and narrowing in confusion. On the screen, the battle erupted into chaos. Human destroyers appeared from hyperspace in tight, coordinated jumps, each arrival cutting through the enemy formation like blades. The footage focused on one ship in particular, the Valiant Heart, its hull scorched and pitted, its crew fighting desperately. They didn't have superior firepower. They had timing. Every shot they fired found a weak point. Every maneuver anticipated enemy reactions, as if human intuition could see through alien tactics. A warlord growled softly beside his throne, tapping sharp claws anxiously against the stone. Then came the most unnerving footage yet. Ground combat. On a scarred world littered with craters, human infantry, ragged, exhausted, reduced to scavenging alien weapons, fought with impossible grit. The screen focused on one squad cornered in a valley, cut off and surrounded. Their sergeant looked around at her people, blood staining her uniform. No one's coming to save us, she said calmly. So let's do the impossible. They fought uphill, against energy cannon fire, against mechanized alien walkers that towered above them. The footage was raw and unflinching. Soldiers using smoke, mirrors, sonic grenades made from salvaged parts, turning science projects into weapons. The envoys hissed quietly, wings twitching nervously. Van reached out with a trembling claw and paused the hologram. For a moment, they whispered among themselves in a flurry of clicks and tones, words the translator refused to render. But the footage resumed without waiting for consensus. It showed human medics refusing to leave the wounded, covering them with their own bodies as artillery rained down. Pilots, their fighters into enemy weapons emplacements to protect civilians. Engineers crawling through shattered vent shafts, their breaths ragged, to rig one final explosion that would stop a planetary invasion force. The narration darkened, It is not their strength that terrifies their enemies. It is their will. The screen cut to space once more, human ships surrounded by debris, out of ammunition, down to their last reserves. The alien fleet approached like a tidal wave. But the humans didn't flee. They charged. A battered cruiser ignited its engines and rammed headfirst into the lead dreadnought, detonating in a chain reaction that tore apart the enemy's command vessel. The surviving ships followed through the breach, pouring through like wolves into a fold of sheep. Gasps echoed through the council chamber. The Christian envoy's glow flickered pale, dimming in fear. The reptilian warlord beside him whispered hoarsely, "They should not be capable of this." But the footage defied their logic. It showed survivors standing atop tanks, raising flags fashioned from torn uniforms. It showed enemy prisoners receiving water from the very humans they tried to exterminate. It showed an exhausted commandant staring into the camera, her voice shaking. "We are not conquerors. We just refuse to kneel." The footage lingered on the faces of children peeking from bunkers, clutching toes, eyes wide with trust in the defendants who stood outside against impossible odds. The final image was silent. A lone human pilot drifting in space, cockpit cracked and frozen, staring toward a rising star as her life signs faded. Her lips moved, no sound came, but the subtitles rendered her final words. "If they ask, tell them I wasn't afraid." The screen went black. No music played. The chamber remained silent, save for the faint hum of the council's energy field. No one moved. No one spoke. The footage, and brutally real, had shattered any illusions they held. The council chamber, once a place of power and arrogance, had become a place of reckoning. For the first time in memory, alien rulers faced the terrifying truth. Humanity did not fight with superiority. They fought with defiance. And against defiance so absolute, victory was no longer assured. The Grand Council chamber was silent, the weight of what they had just witnessed pressing down on every delegate like the crushing force of a collapsing star. For cycles beyond counting, they had considered themselves masters of strategy, wielders of power beyond question. But now they sat, uneasy and trembling, before a truth they could not unsee. The final portion of the human war documentary began to play, not with the thunder of batters, but with a simple, steady rhythm of footsteps. The camera panned across devastated battlefields where human survivors walked side by side with their wounded, each carrying burdens that seemed too heavy for fragile bodies. A quiet voice spoke over the images. "We are not immortal. We are not invincible. But we are unbroken." Soldiers paused to lift rubble from a collapsed structure, revealing trapped alien civilians beneath. One soldier extended his hand to a cowering child with bright purple eyes. The child hesitated, then took the human's hand, trembling. The message was clear: mercy where none was required. The scene shifted to a mass funeral in a orbit. Human ships gathered in formation, each vessel releasing glittering capsules into the void. Soldiers, scientists, medics, all honored equally. Alien prisoners stood in respectful silence aboard the observation platforms. A single trumpet played across the emptiness. The ambassador in the chamber swallowed hard, a soft tremor rippling through his scales. Next came footage from homefronts ravaged by war, but already rebuilding. Families pieced together shattered homes. Children played in streets still scorched by plasma fire. Artists painted murals on cratered walls, images of unity, defiance, and hope. A human elder spoke into the camera with a warm, tired smile. "We mourn our dead, but we never stop living." The camera lingered on that face, etched with lines of sorrow and strength. The footage turned once more to the battlefield, but this time, the war had ended. Alien soldiers stood in surrender, laying down their weapons. Human commandants shook their hands, looking them in the eye. The words echoed in dozens of tongues, subtitled in glowing characters. "There is strength in forgiveness." The hologram showed alien war councils disbanding, their members returning to homes now filled with questions. It showed human delegations arriving on alien worlds not with weapons, but with tools, offering to rebuild what had been destroyed. Their engineers worked alongside alien buildings, their doctors treated alien wounds, and their artists collaborated on monuments that honored both the fallen and the lessons learned. A Christian diplomat seated in the chamber found themselves leaning forward, their luminescence flickering with cautious hope. For even amid the terror they felt, there was Vanden, a species capable of immense violence, yet just as capable of unimaginable compassion. The footage finally arrived at a speech broadcast across dozens of worlds. A human leader stood before a simple podium, flanked by survivors and alien allies alike. Her voice carried weight and warmth. We will not forget the prize paid. But neither will we carry hatred forward. We will build. Together. The crowd, alien and human, erupted in applause. Back in the council chamber, eyes turned to one another in silence. The final image played, a vast space station under construction, orbiting a world. Its design bore the influence of a dozen cultures, human and alien. Etched into its central spire, visible even from orbit, were simple words in hundreds of languages. Peace is the strongest defense. The hologram faded. The chamber remained silent for long moments before the High Chancellor of the Council finally spoke. His voice, usually booming and confident, was quiet. We thought them reckless, savage and predictable. He paused, eyes heavy with understanding. They are. But they are also builders, survivors, forgivers. And they are teachers. Delegate shivered, antennae twitching. And what have they taught us? The reptilian warlord exhaled slowly. That fear is not the greatest power. Defiance is. Another delegate, her Christian form flickering with emotion, whispered, and mercy is the sharpest weapon. Van by van, the council members stood, no words exchanged, each bowing their head toward the fading hologram where the human leader's face had last been. There was no longer debate. The documentary had not been propaganda. It had been a mirror, and they had seen themselves, small, proud, and afraid. They also saw humanity for what it was, a force that could destroy, yes, but more importantly, a force that could endure, inspire, and lift others up from ruin. As the chamber lights brightened, there was only one consensus left to make. A soft chime echoed. The High Chancellor raised his hand. Let it be known, he said solemnly, that humanity is not to be conquered nor feared, but respected. And across 100 worlds, that decision echoed, not as a surrender, but as an awakening.